Hello guys, once again it's Matt, and today we have another video. Thank you all the members, all the patrons, make sure to subscribe and let's get into it guys. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about the SU-47 BERKUT, an aircraft that a lot of people were asking me about it and why didn't I add it on the Soviet Tech 3 video that I did. So basically the initial idea was to actually be flying one of them in War Thunder, because I really thought there was a mod out there for it, but there isn't. So basically I will have to just talk about it while we see photos of it and we just fly around normal aircraft, okay? But if you don't know, the SU-47, just a quick recap of what it is. It's a very interesting aircraft. The design philosophy, very different from anything. I just read the book on Gordon Yeffings that he basically talks about the MiG-144 and the SU-47 and how basically these two models and these two projects were the fifth generation development in the Soviet Union for the future. The thing is that the Mikoyan has had kind of a better idea of how a fifth generation would look like. The Sukhoi Design Bureau basically didn't want to pursue too much, just for the singular fact that they thought that the SU-27 was enough for a very long time, which was, it basically was, right? For at least 15 years, until this day, the SU-27 design is still relevant, right? So, of course, now it's getting older and stuff, but still, they had a point on that. But the Soviet Union tried to keep up with the just recent news that they just got from the KGB that the F-22, the YF-23 were being made, that the F-117 was being made, aircraft like that were stealthy and just the next generation of fighters in general, right, and aircraft. They had to try to pursue some form of design to do that, and the MiG-144 was one of them, the 142 was one of them, and then the SU-47, which by then was known as the S-32 and then the S-37, were basically the project from Sukhoi. They were kind of left out, the idea became like very common that the Mikoyan Design Bureau had a better idea of how to do a fifth generation aircraft. But after 1991, development basically stopped for both of the projects. The SU-47 was kind of stopped already, but the MiG Design Bureau just had to stop for a while. They eventually ended up building the prototype that they had as well, but the Sukhoi 47 became the same kind of line of thinking that the SU-37 became, after the Sukhoi Design Bureau actually got privatized and it became a company. The idea was to use this design to actually test a lot of the technology that they had in hands with the development from the Soviet Union era, and actually try to do a technology demonstrator, basically demonstrate what the Sukhoi company could do. So this was kind of the idea behind it, right? And since the 80s, the idea that the Sukhoi had, the Sukhoi Design Bureau had, was to do a very different kind of wing design. So the idea was to be a very close aircraft to the Sukhois that existed back then, but having a forward swept wing design so that it could help actually be very, very maneuverable at some certain speeds, right? So it had many problems with that. One of them was I'm not gonna get too much into it, but the wing tends to twist a lot and have a lot of stress under the wings depending on the speed that you are, just because the way that they are. It has some goods on it as well. For example, one of them is having the ailerons work even in very, very high angles of attack, in high angles of attack, right? But the problems with stress and having to have a very modern fly-by-wire system that he had, and the heavy usage of composite materials due to the heavy weight that using normal materials would be to undergo the stresses of these wings, made it so that it was kind of an expensive aircraft at first, and also an aircraft that was too complicated to actually be built and be better at all the situations compared to a normal, after swept design wing. So this was kind of why this aircraft was never built. One of the reasons. It was a very complex aircraft, very expensive, and also, in transonic speeds and very low speeds, the SU-47 would turn like no other aircraft. It would be the most amazing thing ever, but after a certain speed, it would lose out to the normal Sukhois, right? So it didn't have enough of a purpose to actually be added. Some design features of this aircraft, like the weird forward swept wing design, made it a kind of stealthy aircraft, which is the oddest thing ever. Apparently, the wing part, it's not a stealth aircraft, but the wings part that would be normally detected by a radar are kind of invisible due to the forward swept wing design when you are looking at the aircraft from the front with a radar. Basically, the radio waves from the enemy radar would bounce on the wing and then be absorbed or bounced back for other directions on the aircraft fuselage itself, making it a more stealthy kind of aircraft than the original Su-27s, for example, which is quite interesting. Other features that they planned to add was thrust vectoring, for example, that would be even more helping it would be just more amazing in the low velocities kind of turning capabilities. Uses the D30 engines, the Soloviev, which are very powerful engines. It's the MiG-31's engines, right? So the thrust rate, everything, the performance of this aircraft is amazing. It's just that in high speeds, you would lose out to the Su-27s, and there is the major problem, why this is an aircraft that will probably never be added. So the thing is that this kind of became a technology demonstrator, and it never got fully weaponized. So it doesn't have a radar. It doesn't have the rear radar. It doesn't have the weapons. It never got the missiles and stuff. Whatever they wanted to add, they never did. So it had provisions for inside the fuselage kind of hitting spot that the missiles would be, so helping a little bit more with stealth. And the radar would be a very, very advanced radar with like PESA and stuff. ECMs would be added as well internally. A rear radar would be added just like the Su-34 for you to actually not only have a MAL systems for missiles coming up in your 6, but also to attack targets from a 180 kind of degree situation with an R-73M, an R-77 maybe, something like that as well. So the idea was to actually show a little bit of this aircraft and see if it catches on a little bit, if it's worth to actually do. But at the end of the day, the normal Sukhois were just a little bit better. It was kind of cancelled due to that. General idea was that the Su-27 was a better aircraft to have the design for a more advanced aircraft at the time, since the 5th generation aircraft basically wasn't a very big project that the Russians were trying to do due to money and stuff. It was basically cancelled, right? The first flight of it was in 1997, but it was cancelled shortly after that. And some years later, basically they tried to, do another aircraft that was a 5th generation that became the Su-57 that we know today, right? A completely different design than this. So we kind of know that these designs, much just like the US, kind of got forgotten a little bit, being not really worth it to actually try to do this. So remember, it's an aircraft that if added, first of all, it needs to have a little bit of magic of guiding, like to be feasible, just like the F-16AJ has, for example. Because this aircraft, they didn't have any missiles, no guns, no radars, nothing. So it's just a technology demonstrator, as I said. It's just showing what a design like this can do. It's a very cool aircraft, but unless they do that and just add out of nowhere a radar that is not barely even mentioned in the books and stuff, we don't even know what a radar this thing would have. Probably a PESA, but we really don't know. So it's complicated, right? It's really not feasible to have this aircraft. And To be honest, I really rather have another project that was a little bit more confirmed in the game than this. Just like we have the ARC-41, I prefer to have something like that than something like this, because that thing actually passed the tests. I mean, it had the radar that was going to be added to it, so everything was just going forward for the aircraft, and then the Soviet Union collapsed. As is this kind of halted the production of it way before those tests and stuff, right? So it's complicated. It's stretching a little too much in my taste. So, like I said, it would be kind of similar to an F-16AJ. So, I don't know. I let you decide. Do you think it would be a feasible addition or not? Remember that if something like this is added, it opens up kind of a precedent for many aircraft to be added. Aircraft that you might not like to see. So just think about that for a minute. It's an aircraft that I don't think it's really worth it. But anyway, let me know in the comments what you think about it. And I see you guys on the next one. Bye.